G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 27th of July 2026. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Gates, Into the Ozman, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. All my links are in the link tree today. Bit of a stretch. Careful! Might accidentally have some exercise. Oh no, can't have that. Oh, rude of me. Go on, get back here. Alright. Gosh. What a pickle we're in. People often dismiss my work as fiction. Fiction, I tell you. Because I'm a fiction writer, everything I say must be fiction. Because that is what the low IQ left do. They boil everything down to the simplest little, the lowest they can go. And boy, do they go low. But when the media says something totally totally fantastical in nature, well, it's either right-wing propaganda or they lap it up. There's no nuance with them. Everything is flip the switch. But I mean, President Zelensky is claimed to be between a rock and a hard place. Now, what's going on here? All right. Ukrainian crisis, says Zelensky's sexiest most senior commanders. He sacked another one, by the way. Yes. He sacked his general today, and the nation is protesting. Still, the 11th day. Today's the 11th day of protests of the sacking of Mikhail Fedorov. Now, this is because the general was being a petulant child and refusing to speak to his commander-in-chief because they had a disagreement over progress of the war. Fedorov was actually the architect of the current missile campaign, which many journalists and some commentators believe was highly successful. They are, of course, trying to make sure that Zelensky does not have any blood on his hands. They are putting all the attacks on civilians onto Fedorov. Okay, he was willing to accept to wear that, as Ukraine has the Soviet model of military, predominantly still. So you get Ukraine's secret weapons leave Russian forces and Putin speechless. What is it? Sending Ukrainian women behind the enemy lines to launch drones at Russian soldiers. And they paint them as glorious heroes. How many don't come back? Yeah. You notice they've never interviewed. Remember when they were interviewed the Ghost of Kiev? What happened to him? Well, it turned out he was a PR stunt. So, remember that model joined the Ukrainian army, and she was carrying an airsoft gun and was and moved to Poland. So, Ukraine is besieged, I tell you. And while they're not saved to the secret police, same weasel words everywhere you go. Police repression. They're claiming Russia has taken the streets in protest. No. So it's Ukrainian protest. He's got his facts all. He's trying to glaze his. This is Access Media at its best. Glazing Zelensky. Zelensky, please let me still come into Ukraine so I can be a war ghoul. Because you can't be a war ghoul if you can't go to the war now, can he? Even though he doesn't go to the war, he just sits there at his teletype, gets something off the Ukrainian feed, types it up on his computer, so it's totally original, and then he goes to sit and have his latte for the rest of the day and has a nap and goes out and admires all the stuff that he can spend his glorious tens of millions on. Well, actually, no, hundreds of thousands of dollars these people earn to lie to you. Yes, they may not be subject to the same restrictions as Russia, but they still have a secret police and lots of restrictions. It's just not the same, right? It should be Ukraine is not subject to any repression, but they are. It's because he can't lie that much, can he? Or does he? But he claims there are two centers of power. Oh, gosh. Man, he definitely wanted to be a literary writer, didn't he? He definitely loves his fiction. And, of course, what's going on here? He's convinced to make a tech bro. Oh, fucking Jesus frickin' Christ. But there we go. We have protests today in Ukraine. Silversky is known as Mr. Blood, Sweat and Tears, Mr. Determination. And then they show you a picture of Zelensky, like, why not show the general? Because he's fired. The fired, I tell you. Because the only person they want to have any glory is their good man Zelensky, their creation, their actor. He's an actor playing a role. Because he's a member of the Jacobin Club, he gets all the glory. He's one of us, says the journalist. So all his peers who are not one of us will take the fall, because that is how the club works. So little secret handshakes and the holding of the yarmulke and all the other, they're just pathetic rituals to just distinguish which faction they're from, whether they're Mason or Jacobin or socialist or communist or fascist. Although fascism is still on the outside, they're still socialists, and if they're a quiet fascist like Ursula von der Leyen, they're allowed in the club. But when they're a loud fascist, they get kicked out of the club. And boy, there's a lot of loud fascists lately. So, Ukraine is having a big protest. Power to the people. Well, that's what happens when you convince the people they have power. You try to take it away from them and they start getting upset. Gosh, didn't they learn anything? All right, there's the subway. Not much going on, actually. You think for a national emergency with a huge air raid, the subway would be full of people. We cannot win the war alone. So you haven't won. If you cannot win on your own, you are not a winner. You're a parasite. They always want to drag others into their mess. Why? So they have no moral culpability. Right? They can say, oh, we didn't do this. We weren't alone. See, it's a way of offloading your immorality. It's why every country doesn't go to war alone. It's why Europe won't go in alone. It's why America can't go it alone. Because everyone is playing petty politics. Doesn't matter what you do, you'll always be someone's villain. But the media wants you to believe that there are no villains other than Russia, Russia, Russia. They claim his popularity is at 61%, more like 61% if you've got massive protests across the country, right? But no, that's only Trump. No, Trump, that's Trump, I tell you. Mr. Mega Tech Bro, he's the brain. He won't give enough satellites to Ukraine. Oh, Ukraine has the Russian officer ranks have been decimated, so you've been beaten by a lesser army. They're poorly trained troops. Their supply networks are being cut. The occupying Crimean Peninsula has been isolated from Moscow. Russia itself is under sustained attack. We're on the verge of victory, comrades. Please point to the map and tell me where this verge of victory is. Where's this mighty Ukrainian army? Now, you might have seen recently in the media some countdowns saying that Russia's at negative 5.5. Okay, that is all about the fact that despite Russia's gains in the Donbass from 2022 to about 2023, for about 6 months, Russia occupied more land than they currently do. And since then, they've had this countdown, right? With the Russian forces pushed back, they now claim, no, Zelensky offered a peace deal, Russia retreated to the lands they wanted and says, here, we don't want this land, we only did this to put pressure on you. Zelensky says, thank you for retreating, I'm not going to sign the deal now, because you already retreated without me signing the deal. And Putin said, okay, sign the deal, and we stay where we are. And Zelensky said, well, if you retreated with my small army, well, now that I've got my big army from Europe, I'm going to attack you now. So that's where the countdown is. And why is it at negative 5? Because Russia has almost captured the amount of territory in Donbass that they had in the height of 2022. Which means, but they're not counting down the rest of Ukraine, right? They're only counting down the Donbass. Now, why is the Western media only counting down the Donbass? Because it seems in the know is that this war is finalizing as the Battle of the Donbass. So they are not counting Kharkiv, Sumy, or other territories, despite the fact, propaganda-wise, it would show Russia has lost more land than they have if you only count the land they've lost in the Donbass. So why are they being pro-Russian if they're so anti-Russian? Access media. They still need to tickle Putin's balls somewhere along the line. Otherwise, they're completely isolated from Russia. And the estranged part is the media can't help themselves. See, it's pathological. As a kid, I used to call it, and I can't remember what it's really called, but I call it the pathetic people pleaser, the PPP, right? Or, if you remember, the public leaning poll, right? The PLP, right? You know, hey, PLP, you know, public leaning poll, but the pathetic people pleaser, right? The people who have to go around tickling everyone's balls, or tickling everyone's genitals to basically make friends. And trust me, right, having worked in the union sphere of media, the organized media, union media, as although I was only a part of a computer contract team, you journalists, I swear, the way they talk to people, you feel like the creep, they're creeps. They're always eyeing everyone's genitals. When you notice things, I don't know about now, but a lot of journalists, that's what they do. They're always ogling people's genitals and breasts, They are, and women too. They're all crazy. There's nothing that satisfies them. They always want more. Now, there's a lot more protests today than there were yesterday, which means not only the protests are gaining momentum, but Zelensky's popularity is shrinking. They are and to appease the mob, he is and protests in Kiev and other key areas, including you can understand why they're protesting in Dnipro and Kryvyi, even though Kryvyi isn't shown here on the map, I don't think. I'm not going to peel the layers, but you can understand why they're protesting. Zelensky's got his air defences. Everyone knows he flies out with the helicopters every evening. He doesn't stay overnight in Kiev. He flies in to all these weird areas to make appearances, to make it look like he's travelling around the country and caring. But people are noting and notice that he's never around when there's a missile attack. He's never around when places are on fire. He's never around when the front lines are crumbling. Now, the problem is, like I said, manpower. Okay, Ukraine's got a lot of it still, a very lot. Right, they're sitting on 1.1 million in the country and another 2 to 3 million outside the country. How much they can get back into the country is struggle bus, because so many of them are fighting to stay. They are not fighting to go to Ukraine. The majority of Ukrainians are fighting to stay out of Ukraine. It's like the average Mexican. How much you love Mexico? Oh, I love Mexico. It's the greatest country in the world. Go back. No, don't ruin my life. No, I actually know a Mexican. He would probably hate me for it, but he is probably a real Mexican. Unlike some of the Mexicans you meet outside of Mexico, real Mexicans who love Mexico stay in Mexico. And they don't, and the people who stay, and the Mexicans who stay in Mexico don't want those people back because they're not real Mexicans. You know, that's why. So you can understand that Ukraine's not the only country where people fight to leave and fight to stay once they've left. And it was happening long before the war, so don't blame the war for the million. Don't blame the war. The war has only given them millions of refugees, where in the past they had tens of thousands of refugees. And because they let those tens of thousands of refugees stay in limbo, they've now multiplied that problem. And so Europe now has its own, shall we say, Mexican problem. The standoff. They don't know what to do. Like, these people love Ukraine until you tell them to go back. And the people in Ukraine don't consider them real Ukrainians. And that is because a lot of them are ethnic Russians. And tell people in Ukraine the difference between ethnic Russian. Like, even geneticists hardly separate the two. It's like, you're cousins, okay? You can, if you speak each other's language, right? If a Ukrainian spoke Russian, there's no way to tell they're Ukrainian. It's the same with a Russian who speaks Ukrainian. There's only a few giveaways and few tells. Their habits, their ethnicity is almost so alike. And that is because they're both, they all come from the Rus. It's like most Western Europeans. There's Anglos, there's Saxons, there's Nordics, there's Celtics. In Russia, it's the Rus, Kazakhs, the Siberians, and of course the problem is you have the Mongols. So you have the Tatars and your I can't remember the others. Sorry, Turks, Turkmens, Turks, the Turkmens. So Crimea is Turkmen, right? Crimea, though, has no native population. Okay, it was empty when the Greeks settled it. Throughout the Middle Ages, many groups have all tried to settle Crimea, Turks invaded Crimea. 20,000 Russians were buried and enslaved and buried alive by the Turks for punishment for uprising. Though different stories have different numbers, you all have the same thing. You have wars and bloodshed. And with this bloodshed, modern bloodshed, you also have a collective dysphoria, in that the people of the Donbass, whether it be Ukrainian or Russian, they don't like this side of the border. It's because this side of the border has spent, and it's like Canada, and in some parts, in ways, many countries are like this. I know it's happened in my country too, where states collect revenue and then skew it towards the capitals and the cities. And so when you have an area where in order to elevate one area, yes, the revenue is in other areas is low. So you have disparity between city and state, where the cities get disproportionately higher, like New York, share of the revenue, and that's not enough because cities always want more. And so you have such an amazing disconnect in the state where even most Ukrainian roads are not sealed. Most Ukrainian cities are still Soviet-era blocks with poor sanitation, poor electricity supply, while the rest of the country glows like a modern European light spectacular for the tourists. While the countryside has its lights turned off so to keep the refrigerators in hospitals running, because they won't run their nuclear powers. I think their nuclear power is running only at 50% or something, because they got to nursemaid their reactors because of the excess radiation they were exposed to, and they still have it cooled so they don't operate within normal temperature. Now, Russia's hit many places more than once today. And as you can see, there's a lot of light-ups with Kryvyi being hit a lot. Actually, they didn't hit Dnipro. When the protests broke out in Dnipro, they hit them in the morning with drone strike, and then later when there was protests, Russia didn't attack. Very clever. Very clever indeed. Same with attack on the Kharkiv. They hit them once and then stopped with the protests. It's like the protests stopped the Russian missile attack. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's going to be... Kiev is going to notice that. The protesters are going to notice that. The protesters will protest more if they believe it will stop the Russian missile attacks. And if it does, that destabilization, well, that's a very carrot-and-a-stick approach to the war now, isn't it? We'll see what happens. But as we can see, the Russians are fighting still in the various buffer zones. They're trying to extend it. As you can see, they are extending it slightly. They still haven't married this one up, but they married this one up. They're heading towards this one. They're also trying to build one in Sumy. Now here in Lyman, different maps all have this as grey zone and green, whatever. They're fighting. Fighting really hasn't progressed. There are only sporadic fighting incursions into Monoplankia, although other channels say, no, it's falling any day now. Yeah, that's what you said about Bakhmut. And again, this is the problem. Why do people continue to watch lies? I never know. But of course, to them, I suppose it's more entertainment than informative. And here we have... combat operations here. The Ukrainians pushing back. The Russians are, whatever reason, I suppose it's to marry up here. held here, come up behind the Ukrainians. Actually, not entirely. You're not going to race towards your forces. You're here, they're there. They're going to fire across the Ukrainians. So yes, that's how you do a two-way ambush. You don't fight. You don't split your forces like this. You split them like this. Okay. Now, Russians are allegedly up to here. But this is a grey zone. This town is somewhat under Ukrainian control. This is somewhat still under Ukrainian control. These are marked as infiltrated, but somewhat as Ukrainian control. The Russians are increasing this, but again, they're marking this as grey on other maps, and on other maps it's all grey. There are lots of other maps, but a lot of them are made by they're all made by different volunteers, except for the one from Sputnik. There's no official Ukrainian map, although there sort of is. Now, this fighting is actually up here. It's just, yeah, stick a pin in it. The Ukrainian, they're going to eventually colour this in. These maps run by Ukrainians are slow. They slow down the news between 24 to 48 hours on reporting towns fallen. But this is expanding. They're pushing towards Druzanov. Why are they just expanding here? Well, actually, I have a huge, and I'll show you soon, growing Russian army behind the lines. So, out of range. Because they cluster around air defences, that's why. Alright, so they haven't taken anything significant here. Now, this is the town that's reported as fallen today. But they're still fighting, but according to Ukraine, they're still fighting on the outskirts of town, and they're not conceding the territory. Same as this. They're not conceding the territory here either. They have, and because in the past they pushed the Russians back in here and here, although they're back again. It's the same here. They pushed the Ukrainians. Russia's backwards and forwards here. They've not been able to break through. They've not been able to break through here. They haven't been able to break through here. There's a few places where they haven't been able to break through, but they've been able to go around. They've lost territory here and there. Like I said, little bits here and there have been lost. They've lost territory in here, but it's offset because they gained territory elsewhere. And then they start to push back from the sides. That's what they do. They haven't been pushed back here. And as you can see, they were pushed back here, but they've come around. And they're backwards and forwards here. They haven't been able to hold these towns for long. Haven't been able to hold territory here. But on the outskirts, once they're on the outskirts of town, the Russian lines, when they're compressed, are able to push. So they're able to stop the Ukrainian counterattack. They've been unable to spear through the Russian lines either. But so, for whatever reason, the Russians are deliberately undermining their assault forces by the looks of it. And why would they do that? Why, if they want to win? Again, it's about long-term strategy, wearing the Ukrainians down. The assaults, if they were like Bakhmut, when the assaults hard to organise, hard to accumulate troops. If they accumulate troops too close to the front line, they attract Ukrainian missiles. If they stay back, Ukraine decides it's too expensive to fire missiles at them because they're most likely to be shot down, or because it takes the missile. They also have an hour. They have enough sufficient time to disperse, right? But if you're near the front line, you don't have time because, yeah, you're closer to the missiles. It's a cat and mouse. So you don't see, because you don't see it, it's hard to explain to you. And it's hard to show to you because all you see is tanks running across fields, men running around. There's no one coordinated image. It's something that builds up over time in your head. So you can dismiss what I say or not. Believe me. Here we go. There are other maps to look at. Now, last time I get this far into the video, lots of people do tune out. That's so you never get the whole picture. Right, there's Koshnikovia. According to the Ukrainians, they still hold the northern part of Koshnikovia. As you can see, they've moved the marker to the outskirts of town. But they've coloured in all that here, halfway through the town. And they show this block is smaller. They don't show. They've taken away the yellow one. They've changed the colouring of the markings. But they've taken away the yellow zone. I forget how to turn it back on. I know it's in one of these settings here. Display. Statistics. Weapons ranges. 105s, 155s. Yeah, most of them are 155s. Crab. Yeah, all right. Russians, 153. Here we go. See, this is the green territory I was talking about, the territory Russia had taken in 2022, and how they're Ukrainians. Yeah. See, this is troop concentrations here. You can see them all. You can see where they're closer to the line, fighting up towards... these guys are fighting this way. These guys here fighting this way. See, look how they don't have troops everywhere either. But yeah. But these are artillery positions and missile batteries. Doesn't actually show you the troops themselves. As you can see here, there's different pushes at different times. And here you can see the grey area where this is the green area in Donetsk that I'm talking about, how the media is only counting down this little area in Donetsk. So that's why they're doing that again. So access media, right? They're not showing the whole. They're not showing the Kharkiv or Zaporozhye countdown. Only now. This is the thing I kept telling you about, right? It's something that came up in the 60s, Manifest Destiny, although it's been used before for many things. To the left, it currently means if you say something often enough, you create these narratives and you create and alter reality. What the left are trying to do is get a focus on Donetsk. So they have a huge battle of Donetsk, defeat the Russian army, and somehow that defeat will liberate Crimea in their eyes. They don't ask Crimea what Crimea wants. Shh, white woman talking, we know better than you. They are the left other meme. They are that meme. Shh, I know better than you. They are that meme. They decide for you that you have to be liberated, that you have to become part of liberal democracy. And so when you hear the left talking about the fight for liberal democracy, they mean using violence to impose their ideology on you. And this is what Russia's fighting against, because they see liberal democracy leading to degeneracy, communism, or actually they don't call it communism, they call it fascism. And yeah, they say, you look at liberal democracies, they all end in fascism. That's why Russia's fighting against it. And historically, that has been true, even all the way back to ancient Greece. Fascism isn't a new idea. It's born out of the failures of liberalism, when liberal academics get so frustrated with the failures of their own system, they become authoritarian to impose their ideas on the people who don't want to live by their neatly ordered OCD, because that's what liberalism is. It's OCD. So they put you in a box. I'm a earther, so I can't get involved in AI. I can't do artwork. I'm not allowed to be I'm not allowed to be different. I have to be what they label me as. So they don't support me because I won't fit into their box. They want me to be gay. They want me to be trans. They want me to be their bottom. They do not want me to. They want me to give away all my wealth, even though I earn less than the average. I earn 38% less than average wage. I'm not even the working. I am the working poor. But they want me to give away all my privilege. What privilege do I have? I don't have much of an audience. I don't have millions of dollars. They seem to assume I'm a multi-millionaire. Also, they think I'm 35. How old do you think I am? And some of you out there know, so don't answer if you know. But yeah, so I am hoping that some of you will notify me on launch, follow my project, give it some support, get it out there. I need to grow. I need to expand. I need to afford things like a computer that isn't last generation. Not last generation. Jeez, that would be. Was it 3 generations behind current technology? And I know a lot of. We just get the Xbox. I know. It's not about playing games, is it? Oh, you don't need a lot of computing power to write. That's. Yeah. I can only run 1995 AIs, people. Come on. I can only run. I only got 2 gig of VRAM. Now, how pathetic that is these days. Romania has summoned the Russian envoys that shoots down the 3rd drone. Here we get into the territory of hypocrisy. Look how they display the 2 different stories. When it's Russia attacking, it's summon the envoys over a 3rd drone. Kazakhstan, same yesterday. Ukrainian ambassador, there was no proof those drones were from Ukraine. Did I not just report, not yesterday, day before, how Ukraine attacked and said they attacked Russian shipping? Ukraine admitted to attacking it. Now, what's happened is these were not Russian ships; they were Kazakhstan ships from the CPC. I forget what it stands for. I know it's somewhere here. It's a Commonwealth of Petroleum. It's the Commonwealth Petroleum Consortium, I think, or something. It's Kazakhstan and neighboring countries, and it's also got partners in the US and Europe, including Romania, right? Now, Ukraine tops the list of countries that have a crude oil shortage because of Ukraine's attacks. on Kazakh soil. Now, they now have to divert more oil to pipelines. I'm telling you, Ukraine is getting its marching orders on what to attack. And that in return, they get billions of dollars because numbers must go up. So Ukraine gets its share to keep the war going. They're now, but everyone is telling the quiet part out loud. Europe and the United States, behind closed doors, are trying to get Ukraine to stop this war. Chevron and others have spoken out on the matter of attacking neutral shipping. Some of these ships that have been attacked belong to American companies, but they're flagged. Just because they're flagged in Kazakhstan, they're Russian ships. Zelensky again, smooth-brained, low IQ thinking. Ooh, I see Russian flag. It's not a Russian flag, it's Kazakhstan. Same difference, shoot it. And then what happens? Oil price go up, Zelensky gets his cut from Israel, allegedly, and through Austrian banks. Remember, Austrian banks said money's not coming from our government. Also, which government it's coming from? The British Lord has said the quiet part out loud. The British are sick of the conflict in Ukraine. They want the British government to focus on the conflict at home. And, of course, immediately he came under attack as a Russian bot. But he said Ukraine should cede the territory. They've lost to Russia in the war. That NATO has been ambitious and should abandon its goal of joining NATO. That they should have withdrawn from Kursk. Yeah. But Western involvement, and again, he blames Western powers, including the United States, for prolonging a long conflict by arm. And, of course, there's been a huge diplomatic backlash against someone speaking the truth, that the British people are not allowed to have... You're not allowed to have an opinion other than the narrative. This is why they attack Trump, because they want to... Because no matter what you do, it's never enough. Until you're a degenerate under their control, they'll constantly attack you. So why be under their control? That's authoritarianism. That's fascism. Them controlling what you say and think. Because, see, it's a damaged human psyche. The liberal is a damaged human psyche. And because they had to surrender to the mob, you now have to surrender to the mob to make them feel better, because they're cowards who won't leave the mob. See, the most vicious liberal is actually a coward who won't leave the mob and repeats the talking points because they want power to protect, to comfy them. They want their comfy blanket. Now, Russia has launched group strikes. Now, what are group strikes? This is basically when you send multiple waves of, instead of missile, it's missiles. Precision strikes is just military code for, we use guided, satellite guided, or TV guided, or laser guided, or, unlike glide bombs, which just go out and go wee all the way down. No, these are actually specifically aimed at targets, as opposed to glide bombs, which, have you noticed, have actually been on the decrease. Why is that? Well, they're not making much of an impact. Pun intended. So Russia's taken control of Shevchenko. What makes Shevchenko important? Yes, you're going to say this war's about resources. What war isn't? But denying Ukraine resources crumbles their economy. So it's all about resources. Nothing is not. It's either people or resources, and people are resources to the state. Now, Russia has created the largest unmanned naval drone so far. These are 500-ton boats. They are pilotless. But for now, they do have a crew as part of its AI training. Yeah, let that sink in. A 500-ton. That's not that's a gunboat, right? It's under 1,000 tons, so it's technically a gunboat. Although here they show a cruiser. Um, don't know why, but yeah, I think the cruisers look at all the bubbles. They're command ships. They're monitoring and controlling the smaller boats. But the smaller boats do have a crew as part of the crew AI training to monitor. But this new ship is a frigate. Comes under 9,000 tons. It's the largest and most advanced of Russia's ships to date. It is much larger, and well, we're saying 9,000 tons, but 9,500. So that's for deployment, right? So it carries. So it can be actually upgraded with 500 tons of extra missile launchers once its crew is removed. But yeah, so they have various ballistic missiles that can be tube launched. But yes, there you go. 500-ton vessel. They're going to be for submersible detection. Told you so, did I not? That the Ukrainians are operating unmanned submersibles across the Black Sea, and the Russians are going to launch ships to hunt them down. That's how they get their little attacks so far into the Sochi and that off the coast. These little submersibles date back to World War II. They're not new modern technology. I remember when the Germans were trying to sell them to Australia. Then the French were trying to sell them to Australia. Then the Americans got the contract in the end, and we did not go with miniature submersibles because they are only short range. They are only good for short range attacks. X-boats, they were originally called in World War II, and were used to first sink the trips, although they might have been used before for infiltration of France. But yes, so that's frigate, not a cruiser. Sorry, not. But ocean-going warship. Russia needs such ships. Pointing out needs to protect, because other countries are allowing Ukraine's submersibles to be refueled. I believe they're using a hydrogen hybrid engine from Germany. That's why there's no air bubbles, because they're also unmanned and they sit just below the surface, just like a drug boat. Remember, Ukraine got its drug cartel set of cigarette smugglers with their submersibles and drones together because they can. So, yes, they're also working with the Colombian and other cartels to smuggle weapons into Russia for Ukrainian espionage. You wonder why organised crime exists? Because governments let them exist. So Russia's Navy best guarantor of ships, how they're going to deal with drone boats, as we are going to see, as you see. What can you see on the back of the deck? That's right, helicopters. They're going to use helicopter patrols with surface scanning. Now, I think it's millimeter sonar. They're using surface scanning sonar buoys, towed arrays. Surface scanning towed arrays. Though it has a buoy, it's actually can be pulled. You know, the rescue bar in a helicopter, instead of lowering a rescue basket, they lower a buoy into the water and they tow it along very slowly and start listening to the ocean. They're called surface scanning sonar, and that's how you detect the drug boats. Although Americans are currently using some sort of high-tech visual device, turns millimeter radar and microwaves into a visual display. Nothing secret here. You can look it all up for yourself. It was alleged that's how they're doing it, not proven that is the technology they're using. And heck, LiDAR is nothing new. Laser scanning arrays and stuff like that, but the Russians are using old school technology still. They're not much of a threat. Europe, however, because they're so far behind the United States, sees Russia as a threat, because Russia can build its economy and become the next United States, whereas Europe can't, because they are stuck in liberal. Remember, liberals are stuck in the past with what is. Russia is starting to look forward and at what could be. When you get that disconnect between liberalism and modernism, that is the disconnect. Russia wants to be a modernist state, whereas Europe wants to be a liberal democracy, stuck in the classical era, repeat the same movies over and over again, repeat the same storylines over and over again. Nothing new. Is small hamlet cities. That's why they want 5-minute cities, so everything's small and cozy, comfy. They're a bunch of old grannies at 25, although they pretend to be so progressive and so avant-garde, but no, they're just cycling the same. They're just cycling fads. Next, you see hula hoops, brand new hula hoops, neon hula hoops. Everyone doing the jiggle. Oops, have to cancel that. Someone did a jiggle. So that's the state of the war. It's psychological. It's pathological. The media can't stop lying. They can't, because they are stuck in the past with what is. They need their access. If they tell the truth, they lose their access. This is and that shows you that we are not in a liberal democracy, but the fascism stage of the liberal democracy, where the truth hurts the government's feelings. So if the truth hurts the government's feelings, they're up to no good. Whether it be Donald Trump, he's trying to manage a coalition of half the Republican Party are just as bad as half the Liberal Party of Australia, half the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom, and all across Germany. In that half the so-called conservatives are not really conservatives. They're university indoctrinated, paid opposition. They're only there to collect a paycheck. They don't really oppose anything. They just use words to get elected because they can't win the election as a liberal, and they're not really liberals, and they don't want to be liberals, but they don't want to win because that means they have to work. And so they are paid opposition. They collect a paycheck to be there, and they don't want to be seen except on the electorate when there comes time for elections, and then they say how they're fighting the system for you. It's the same with the left. We're fighting the man. And then they sit down to big industry dinners and plot against you, and then laugh haughtily about how stupid you all are. Because the union leaders, they're one of the biggest landlords in Australia, union leaders. So, yeah, that's the state of the war. Pathological liars. Pathological liars who can't help themselves. So cutting through the truth, as you can see, gets you no friends. But I'm not going to stop. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll keep going as long as I can, but I really need your support. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. Oh no, someone bought my book. Wow. Well, thank you. And I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.